Hi, my name is Tomasz Poszytek. Today, in this video, I would like to continue the topic of the delegated deployments in Power Platform pipelines. Just a short, brief, reminder. If you haven't seen the previous videos, and if you're interested, then just have a look. If you don't want to, then Power Platform pipelines is a tool from Microsoft that allows citizen developers, actually the makers, the Power Platform makers, to benefit from anything that we know as ALM, so the application lifecycle management, so that they create their solutions in dev environment in their own developer environments, and then by using pipelines, they can just seamlessly deploy this solution to different environments like test and prod. And so by default, all these deployments are done on behalf of them, so they need to have an access to all these environments where they want to deploy the solution, which sometimes is not an expected behavior or something that a company can accept, or allow, because maybe in the prod environment, developers should not really be able to perform any operations because that prod environment contains some data that cannot be seen by specific group of users. But anyway, there are multiple scenarios where a single developer is not allowed or should not have access to other environments other than their own dev. Or on the other hand, that we want to deploy the solution and to run it on behalf of a specific account in another environment, so that this another account is, for example, like a service account, has different licenses, and that we want to use it to be an owner of the solution, and as well to provide their context for connections. Now, today, I will be talking about delegated deployments, but on behalf of a specific user. So like in previous video, I showed you how to make a delegated approval using an application account that you can create in Azure. And today I want to show you how you can do that using a specific user's account. There is one very important limitation as of today when doing this kind of deployment. This limitation is quite painful because you are not able to make a deployment of the solution that uses connection references to connections which require an oauth authentication. So unfortunately, if you have such a solution, which is quite common, and you would like to deploy this solution to environment using another user's account or another user's context, then you have two ways. You can either export the solution using your account and then ask the other employee to import this solution in that other environment manually. It's not very good. Or ask them to sign into your dev environment, if this is not your personal dev environment, and it's all good, and to just trigger the deployment this way. So in these both cases, they will be able to deploy this solution even if it contains oauth connections. However, if you want to use this approach, so to use a delegated deployment using specific user's account, then unfortunately you cannot do that for oauth connections as of today. I hope that it will come soon. But I will show you a hack in my next video on how to overcome it using application account. All right, so ready to see? Let's go. So here I'm signed in as Stefan Kowalski, and Stefan has only access to this dev environment, but he has no access to prod environment. Now he built this core solution, but unfortunately, what you will see, I'll just want to make it as a showcase. This solution contains a connection reference to SharePoint, so it will not be possible to make this deployment using the approach I will be showing you. And as of now, he only has access to a pipeline, which is the one I have created previously, so using application account. So application account, he would be able to make a deployment. However, on the other hand, then anything that is provisioned is using this application account as the owner. Also, the connections which are underneath connection references are those created for the application account, which not always is the right solution because well, you might want to use a specific, you would like to use other user specific account. Okay, so with that, let's start from the beginning. I'll switch now to my admin account. So here I am in Power Platform. Wrong. Sorry. Inside the Power Platform Admin Center. Where is it? Where is it? I am sure I have it opened. Oh well, here it is. So now, one thing that you have to be aware of is that the user on behalf of whom the delegated deployment is going to take place must be granted specific security roles. Now, the first security role has to be granted inside the pipeline's host environment. So once you navigate to users, I'll be using the John Researcher's account for that purpose. Just be sure that this user has security role called the deployment pipeline administrator. And also because you will have to create a Cloudflow that will be used to approve this deployment. It can really be an approval, but it can only be the change of state. Then you will need as well to be able to create with this user's account a flow on that environment that well is now being that you have the pipelines deployed to. So as well, be sure that this user is either environment maker or system customizer or even system administrator. That is up to you how much access you want to grant them. The point is that they need to be able to create a flow and connections in that environment, or at least connections that you can later reuse. So that's it about the pipeline's host environment. And also, they need to be granted a specific security role in the prod environment, so in the target environment where the deployment is going to take place. And in this environment, they have to be system administrator. That may sound like too much, speaking about the security. However, this is the requirement. Come on, show up. Yeah, I'll just refresh the page. Right. So in this environment, that user in this target environment has to be system administrator. I'll leave you with that. With this justification, if this is secure or not secure, if this is okay or not okay, because usually this approach may be used in situations that you want to deploy this solution to the target environment using some kind of service account. Usually there are multiple employees having access to that service account. So with this configuration, they would all get system administrator on the prod environment. And I personally don't feel this is correct. So I personally wouldn't really use it. Okay, so anyhow, these are the requirements that this delegated account has to have. Now the next step is that you need to use as well that account on behalf of which the deployment is going to take place to create a pipeline. Maybe not the pipeline as such, but they have to create a stage within the pipeline. So they have to be stage owner of a pipeline. Now I'll create a whole pipeline. That's really fine for me. So I'll use John account to make this deployment. Let's save it. And now this deployment is going to take place from the dev environment. So I should see here the dev environment, all right? And it will take place through a new stage. So this will be a stage called, let's call it dev to prod as usual. And it doesn't have any previous deployment stages, so it only goes directly to prod. And now the next step you have to do is to click that button, that checkbox, is delegated deployment, the same as I showed you for the application account, so with using the service principal. And here the delegated deployment is going to take place on behalf of the stage owner. So this is the stage owner, and also this stage has to be created by John in this case. So it cannot be created by me and then John would be put as an owner. No, it has to be physically created by this account. Right? And last thing that we have to do is to share this pipeline with the user who in the end is going to use it. So for that, you need to hit the share button and then share it with Stefan in my case. So Stefan, come up, and you have to grant them these read permissions. Now Stefan, that's the last thing that we have to be aware, must be a pipeline's user in this environment. So once you navigate to pipelines host, so to this environment where the Power Platform pipelines is installed, be sure that every user you want to be able to use pipelines, they must be granted the deployment pipeline user role, right? So with that, they will be able to use the pipelines, but they won't be able to see the pipelines environment in the list of their environments, right? So that environment is transparent to them. Okay, and also the next step you have to do is to create a flow. Again, the best way is to create a flow using the same account as the stage owner. That is going to be used to change a stage of the record in status of the record in Dataverse that is created behind or for the deployment, so that after the record is updated, the actual deployment takes place. Now for that, I will navigate to solutions and I will reuse a flow that I have built for the application account. So I should have here, oh, there's so many solutions. Yeah, pipelines approval. Now I'll use this flow that I have created previously that was approving deployment on behalf, when the delegation was done on behalf of the service principal. So I will just save it as a new flow. All right. So now once it's created, it should be added to my solution in a second, hopefully. Right. Just be aware that if you're creating a copy of a flow, then it is always turned off. So remember to turn it on so that, well, it's going to work for you. In just a second, and yep, that's on. Now I'll go to edit and I'll perform some changes to this flow because it is using service principal to authenticate actions. So the flow, as before, is triggered on action called onApprovalStarted. So this is the action that is only used when the delegated approval is switched on. Next, the flow, as previously, is getting the deployment request details so that it knows every information about the request. And that is because I want this information to be put in the task which is being sent to approver. And now here is the first step that you need to authenticate as the stage owner. So for that, I will, just for the sake of to be sure, I'll create a new connection on behalf of John, and we'll use it for this connection reference. And then I'll reuse it for other actions, right? So this is now done on behalf of John. So this step or this action is changing the status, approval status, to 10, which means the deployment is now pending the decision. And after the approval is made, then it has to as well change a status either to 20, which means let's say accepted or approved, or 30, which means rejected or canceled or errored. And then these actions are called, these three actions, they are called perform an unbound action. So you need to use this perform an unbound action, and then choose what actual action you want to perform. All right, so that would be it. Oh, and also the last one thing is this flow is triggered whenever any approval starts. So whenever any action is performed on the Power Platform pipeline. So like it will be triggered by default for every single pipeline. Now, what I want to do is to, by using trigger conditions, to only trigger this flow for a specific pipeline and for the specific stage name, and also only for these pipelines which are in status other than 10. So if they are in 20, I mean, if they are in 20, because if they are in 10, like the pending, that would simply mean they're already running. So I don't want to trigger this approval again for them. The only thing I have to do is to get this name here and change it in my trigger condition so that the deployment pipeline name is not the deployment with pipelines up, but is the deployment with John account. And the stage name is dev2prod, which is the same here, is dev2prod as well. All right, so now I feel I'm good to go. I'm good to go. I'll just save it. And after it's saved, I can switch to Stefan's account and simply perform the deployment. So right now, I will switch to his account. And now this is the solution I showed you before. Now I'll navigate to pipelines. There is already deployment with John pipeline present. And now I can hit deploy here. And then go through all this validation process so that the pipelines checks if all the required objects within the solution, if no connection reference requires any connection that is undefined, and so on and so on. So this is why this validation process is here. And well, as I said, its purpose is to simply assure you that the deployment shouldn't fail. All right. Here everything works fine, so the connection is set. Let's change the value from test to prod. And I'll put as for the justification. Now and hit deploy. So what is now happening is just the same as in all previous scenarios, is that the Power Platform pipelines are now exporting the artifact. So it is exporting both the managed and unmanaged ZIP or the zip file. That is then uploaded to Dataverse and is put alongside the history, deployment history of this specific pipeline. And once the artifact is created, then this is when the on approval action is triggered. So when my flow starts. It may take a while, usually a couple of minutes. I mean, it takes the longer, it requires more time as more information, as more objects are within the solution, right? So if there are multiple objects, multiple connections, whatever apps, flows, and so on, then this export time is going to be longer. And so there is the export is finished, and now what started is the on the flow started activity or action. So the flow is triggered. Now me as the owner or as the manager, the approver, I should receive already a task. Yep, so there is this approval. And I can again read that this is some solution. Requester was Stefan. There is the justification as well. And so I can hit approve. All right. But even though I hit approve and the process is going to change the status of the stage to approved, and the deployment actually started, you'll notice in a moment that it will in the end fail. Right, and as you see, the deployment failed. Now, as you navigate to details, you will notice that under the operation details, there is this not very descriptive information that the color with the object blah, 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 does not have minimum required connection to visit operation for the connection, right? So this is the actual reason why the flow failed. So even though that John's account is the owner in system admin in the Delegated environment, this is still not enough to allow them to or to allow Stefan to deploy a solution on their behalf. So now once I navigate back to objects and I just amend the flow, so let me just change slightly the flow and remove this connection reference from this solution. And as well, remove this action from here. So now that's a very, very easy flow. Nothing complicated. And now John makes an attempt to deploy this solution right now. Oh, that's weird. To deploy this solution right now that doesn't have any connection references. You could use like HTTP connection or use the approvals connection, which do not require any OAuth authentication. So these two would actually work. Let's again change it to prod. This time without any deployment nodes, so without any justification. So this is just to, just to make this deployment. All right, so let's wait again until the artifacts are exported. Yep, and again, the request is now created. So once I switch back to here to John, to Teams, now there is this new request present. So now once I hit approve and switch back to to Stefan, you'll notice that this time this deployment will again be, initiated. But this time, due to the fact that it does not contain any OAuth connections, it will simply go smoothly to production. Right? And so this is how it worked. Stefan is unable to actually navigate to prod, but John is able to navigate to prod. So there's a dev environment. This should be the prod environment already. Yeah, that's the prod environment. So now once John navigates back to prod environment into the managed solution, there is this some other cool solution that has just been deployed. And you can see that the owner of all these components is now John. Okay, and so just to summarize what you have seen, in Power Platform Pipelines, you are able to deploy a solution using a dedicated or a specific user's account. That user has to be a stage owner, and they as well have to provide connections for the perform an unbound actions in the flow, which is actually changing statuses of the deployment of the solution. And in this scenario, you are able to make a deployment to an environment where the author of the solution does not have an access to, or in which environment they don't have required licenses, so that you would like to use another account to perform this deployment. The huge or the biggest limitation of this approach is that with the delegated deployment using stage owner as the account, you cannot deploy a solution that contains connection references to OAuth connections. So that is the only limitation, but that is a very, very huge limitation. Hopefully, this will be resolved in whatever, quite soon or the nearest future. Until then, I feel this is very limited. Also, remember that the account you want to use to deploy the solution to the prod environment must be granted system administrator role in that environment, which again may be a very important limitation for you and a no-go, because usually to that account many employees have access, so they would be granted as well system administrator role in that target environment. Okay, so yeah, thank you for watching this video, and if you have any questions, as usual, leave them below the video, and I hope you liked it and that is useful for you. If not, or if yes, or if you have any questions, ask me. As usually, subscribe, please subscribe, leave thumbs up, and well then, until the next time, thank you and bye bye.